See our young guys, the way they're coming out and the way they're playing, it's it's good to see, because they can only get better. And we have a really good group, good nucleus of young guys that you can build around here. And man, really try to change the mindset of how they go about doing things. And you continue to see it happen, with all those guys.
Yeah, it's good to see Aaron Glenn at that podium after a win, especially how the season has been going in the last 5 weeks. You talked about him not necessarily being the guy for the job after talking about him being possibly the best defensive coordinator ever. That's the track he's on. So to see him up there, to see him bounce back with the way the defense played this past weekend, it's good to see. To hear him talk about Kirby Joseph, that's a guy that we talked about, a guy that we wanted to see in there, getting in there, the young guys flying around. That's attributed to the defensive coordinator. That's attributed to the coaching staff taking a step back and saying, you know what, let's figure this out. Sometimes you got to go back to the beginning, Ryan. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes for a team, for a coordinator, for coaches, sometimes as you get into week 6, week 7, week 8, sometimes you guys on Monday and Tuesday, you guys just got to go back to training camp. It's like, hey, you know what? Like, what was our mindset? What was our ideology? What did we say we want to come into the season and accomplish? Like, what are the things that we were doing then to get to where we felt we were good? What are the things we're doing now to be in this space? So I think they're trying to get back, and they got a good slew of games to get back. You look at last week, they played an Aaron Rodgers and a Green Bay team that's not that good. This week they play a team in Chicago Bears. Record says they're just okay. They're not that good. They're trying to figure it out. They got a lot of pieces that they've dealt off like cards to different cities and different spots. So this is another good game to come back on. And then even the following week, you go and you play a Giants team who, as you said and as Matt said, yeah, they're 6-2, but at the same time, they're not a 6-2. It's just like the Vikings. Vikings are 7-1, and nobody pays them any attention. That's kind of what you get out of the Giants. So this is a good stretch of games for the Detroit Lions to build some momentum.
You talk about spying Justin Fields too, that defense. What does that mean for the lay people out there, Bray?
You always have a guy that's focusing on Justin Fields. Whenever you have running quarterbacks, you have that guy. His job is to monitor Justin Fields and wherever he's going to go. He shadows. Sometimes the outside linebacker. Sometimes it's even a strong safety. You keep this guy, he follows. Justin Fields drop back. Well, he drops back in the zone. He keeps his spot. But he monitors where Justin goes, and he runs when he runs. That's what you do when you spy. Quarterbacks that can run are very successful at it. People spy Lamar Jackson. People spy Steve Young. People spy Cam Newton when he was younger. People spy RG3. Same thing with a guy like Justin Fields when he's running. You keep that guy in. His sole responsibility is to monitor where Justin Fields as he's coming out the right or coming out the left. You talked about Aidan Hutchinson, Maz, and the interesting thing with Aidan is this. When we were talking about the draft in terms of who we're going to take, were they going to take Jermaine Johnson? Was it going to be Trayvon Walker? Was it Aidan Hutchinson? Was it Kayvon Thibodeau? The one thing I said about Aidan Hutchinson was this. He reminds me of J.J. Watt, and the reason why I said he can play inside and out. Like, that's the difference between J.J. Watt and T.J. Watt. T.J. Watt is a pure rusher of the quarterback. His job is to go get the quarterback. That's all he's going to do for you. J.J. will play inside. J.J. will take on guards. J.J. will take on guards and tackles. J.J. will push out. Like, that's but the other side of that is this, and this is where you got to be precautionary. That's why J.J. has so many injuries. If you look at J.J. Watt, especially the last 7 years of his career, out for the season, out for the season, out for the season, injured halfway point, out for the season. Last year, he was almost out for the season, but he made a comeback in the playoffs, and obviously they didn't win that game. When you play in there, those leverage injuries, backs, knees, that consistent pounding, shooting upward, right now Aiden's coming off the edge. He really doesn't necessarily have to worry about that. He's dancing with the left tackle or the right tackle. But once you move him inside, you see what you see what Aaron Donald does when he's in there battling with the guard, and then he has to push left hand against the tackle. Way more pressure, way more potential for injury. You don't want a guy like Aidan Hutchinson to be injured and not be available for you, like J.J. Watt has not been available for the Houston Texans for years, and last year for the Arizona Cardinals.
I think we got to start seeing a little bit more from Josh Pascal as well. I know they're breaking him in slowly. It'll be his third game since last November that he'll play this week.
Yeah.
You hear him usually early in the game, but then you don't really hear him after that. And I know they're not playing him all game, but that was the idea for Brad Holmes, to bring him in as a bookend with Aidan Hutchinson. So we're going to need that, and then let's face it, you're going to have to draft some players coming up next year. And I know there's some guys out there, We'll talk about the draft a little bit later. Some more mock drafts out there that you want to see. Lions sitting at 5 right now on the draft board. If they keep winning, man, it's going to keep dropping. I don't have to say that for you, but the Rams are
sitting. Talking about the draft.
Rams are sitting at 12. June. That's all. Listen, man, that's a habit.
I know.
It's a hard habit to break. Remember that song by Chicago?
Real good.
Yeah, it's a hard habit to break.
And to be honest, it's not Maz's habit to break. It's the Detroit Lions' habit to break. Once the Detroit Lions put themselves in a situation where they're no longer, in these type of conversations halfway during the season, 5-1. Like when the Detroit Lions put themselves in a situation where we're not worrying about the next draft pick, when we're not worrying about that, when our focus is worrying on the playoff, who are the Lions going to play in the first round? Are the Lions going to get a first round bye? Years in the making for that one. But then Maz can sit back and not worry about that. But when the Lions consistently do this, Maz and all the other Detroit Lions fans have every right to think that way.
Mm-hmm. Aidan Hutchinson, too, the stat came out today from Pro Football Focus, is sort of highlighting Aidan Hutchinson, that he has the most quarterback pressures of any rookie, the most sacks of any rookie out there right now. Have we put too much pressure on Aidan Hutchinson? Because the stats are lining up, but do you feel like the stats are matching the game that you're watching on the field? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know.
Does that make sense?
Those numbers seem wrong to me.
Those numbers feel like he's dominating.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm watching, and I love Aidan Hutchinson, don't get me wrong, but I feel like the stats are not what I'm watching. Does that make sense?
They definitely make sense, and it's a little bit of give and it's a little bit of take. And what I mean by that is this: if Aidan Hutchinson doubled it, so they're past 8 games.
8 games now.
All right, so they played 17, but let's just say if you double that stat, that's 9 sacks. Are you happy with 9 sacks?
Well, I mean, I think
this is asking question. Are you happy with 9 sacks?
Well, I think we said, the record for rookie, I think is 12.
It's 14.5.
14.5.
Javon Curse.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd be happy with 9 sacks. Yeah, pretty middle of the road, I would think. I mean,
if you're happy with 9 sacks, then you know what, Aidan Hutchinson is having a good year for you. The way I look at it is this: the offensive lines that they've played so far this season are all terrible. Like the Washington Commanders are awful. The Green Bay Packers are in disarray. The Patriots line isn't good. You can go down the list of offensive lines, with the exception of Philly, and even Minnesota's line is not good. With the exception of Philly, and it's one team I'm missing. It'll come to me in a second. Maybe the Seattle Seahawks line is playing really good for Geno Smith. With that being said, he has a decent year going. You drafted him number 2 to create change. You drafted him number 2 to be a record. You drafted number 2 to hear his name, to make noise. And that's what I'm looking for. He's having an okay season. But he didn't get drafted in an okay position. If Aidan Hutchinson got drafted 15th overall and he had 4.5 sacks and he finished with 9, more power to you. But you drafted him in a position to make a difference. He was almost the number 1 pick in the draft. You got to go out there and ball. I'm not worried about what Trayvon Walker is doing. I'm not worried about what Kayvon Thibodeau is doing. I'm worried about Aidan Hutchinson, and I'm worried about what he's doing. You know what? You want to be a game maker? I want to hear Aidan Hutchinson's name all throughout the game.
Yeah.
I want to hear him. I want to see him beating double teams. I love the interception. I want to see him getting sacks. I want to see him almost getting sacks. I want to see him run people down. I want to see that stuff. He's number 2 overall. That's what you expect out of him. He's playing pretty good. And we know that he was hampered by a little bit of an injury after the Washington game. Understand that. But now I want him to take the momentum from last week's interception on the goal line. I want to see him roll that into a couple games in a row with a sack. I need to see at least a sack a game.
Hey, I'm not seeing any stats put out there with these flashy pictures on Twitter on Trayvon Walker. I have not seen one about him. I know week 1 he had an interception. But I'm watching and I'm seeing Aidan Hutchinson get more and more press from the outside media besides us. And I saw Kayvon Thibodeau pop up once. Twice. He had a couple of good games in there, but you haven't really heard much about him either. So as long as this guy keeps doing what he's doing, it seems that he is, as they say, as advertised. So we will see if that's going to be the case. Because right now you only can compare him to the guys that were taken with him.
Maz, I'm not even yelling at you. You see, you already ready to get antsy about me. I wasn't even going to yell at you. This happens a lot. You get like that. And
I saw you start to amp up.
No, I do that so you can know I'm ready to talk. That's like a little hint.
It's a read, man.
It's a read.
Okay,
it's a read, Maz. Don't be that way. This is where people get it wrong. Don't compare people to other people. Don't compare him to what Trayvon Walker is doing. Don't compare him to what Kayvon Thibodeau is doing. Compare him to what people did that made a difference at that position. Look at Joey Bosa's rookie year. 11.5 sacks, and he missed the first 4 games. Look at Nick Bosa's rookie year. Look at Chase Young's rookie year. Those are the guys you compare him to. Don't compare him to these guys in his class. Compare him to who you want him to be. Compare him to the greatness that you want him to be. The reason why he's getting that national attention is because, 1, he does have 4.5 sacks. 2, he was second up in the Heisman Trophy last year, and he did the moonwalk on Hard Knocks. So that's why people are following him. It's because of Hard Knocks and all that stuff.
And if you're honest about it, they played 8 games, and there was 1 game in which he had 3 sacks. So
take away that against
right.
the worst offensive line in the league.
So you've basically got a sack in it. The reason why we don't feel like our eyes are telling the story and matching with the sack total is because you've played 7 games and you've got 1.5 sacks in that 7 games. So that's an issue. I would hope that Josh Paschal helps Aidan Hutchinson, and conversely, Aidan Hutchinson helps Josh Paschal. That's how that works.
And then, too, what happens now that you got a safety in Kirby Joseph, and Kirby Joseph.
Oh, man,
so now
huge.
that you have a safety in Kirby Joseph that knows where the ball is going to be, that plays good coverage, that knows that zone. Now you still have Amon-Ra, who seems to be playing better since being benched. Jeff Okudah, we've talked about him. Jeff Okudah's had a really good year, especially with what we expected of him, what people have projected onto him, that bust tag, etc. Had a really good year. What you start to get for guys on the defensive line, when you have a secondary, Maz and Ryan, that's competent, when they can cover guys, you know what you start to get? You get coverage sacks. Mm-hmm. When you get guys that are covered and the quarterback has nowhere to go with the ball, then Aidan Hutchinson get a couple free sacks. But it all goes together. If those guys are covering, they're D'ing up like that, Aidan Hutchinson can get a few sacks. If Aidan Hutchinson's getting off the ball and he's getting to the quarterback, and now you got the quarterback, Justin Fields, trying to hurry up and get a throw up, what happens? Now Kirby Joseph gets another interception. Now Jeff Okudah get another interception. It works in sequence.
I hope that Derek Barnes can have a game similar to last week, because that's going to be a huge help. I mean, the linebackers, let's face it, that's the weak part of the entire team. The weakest. Anzalone, he tries his best. He's all over the field, but he's always behind, and he makes a lot of tackles because he's behind on the play. But, you need a guy like this rookie, Derek Barnes from last year, to continue his trajectory up. And I thought at one point he was a complete bust. And we're never going to hear from him again.
Never even
but all of a
considered
sudden
him as being a future.
He's back, and that's great news.
Without question. Guys, just for fun, magic number. Lions hold the Bears to X amount of points, and you think they win the game. You got a number in your head?
That's tough because you look at you said last. Because I was thinking of the Green Bay game last week. Like, they almost lost that, and they only scored 15.
I say 27.
I think lower. I would think lower. I think if you could hold Justin Fields and the Bears to 18.
I was going to say 24. I'll go in the middle of you guys.
20.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
And are you able to do that? I mean, this is the up-down theory in the NFL, too. I mean, the Bears are due for a dud offensively here. Yeah. I mean, they just are.
Or they're due for a win.
Yeah, right. They have lost 4 of the last 5. The Chicago Bears have.